Hey rich friends, in today's video I want to talk about how to begin your journey to financial freedom. Journey to financial freedom is a journey that I am on myself personally, and I've had a few years of just walking this journey, making mistakes, learning things along the way, and I'm very passionate to share what are the important steps on the way to becoming financially free. This video is going to be very helpful for you if your goal is to build wealth, to become financially free, have a goal, a vision for yourself, a time in your life when you don't have to work if you don't want to, or where you have the flexibility to work on things that really matter to you. And that could be building your family, it could be another career that is not as high paying as the one that you currently are in. If you have visions of building enough wealth to leave an inheritance for your children, to give your children, your next generation after you, a better financial step or footing than you had or that you currently have, or you have just visions of being debt-free, being in a place where you don't have to think about money when you're making lifestyle choices. If that's your goal, if your goal is financial freedom, where money no longer constrains you and you are making intelligent, bold, and confident decisions with your money, then this video will be absolutely helpful to you. I'm going to be very granular and practical in the steps to financial freedom I'm going to discuss in this video, because I want them to be accessible to everyone, an absolute beginner and someone who has been on their journey for a few years. You may find yourself at different levels of this ladder. You may be at level 1, you may be at level 4, level 6, level 10, whatever the level is. This video will be very helpful to you. The very first step in getting financial freedom is to determine what your goal is. What does financial freedom look like to you? If you don't know where you are going, it's impossible for you to get there. Financial freedom means different things to different people. For some people, financial freedom means they get to a point in their life where they are work optional, stop working and travel and go to all the continents of the world. For some other people, financial freedom means the ability to make career decisions that feel authentic to them. They no longer have to take jobs, assignments, promotions that do not align with their other goals. Financial freedom means finding alignment between their work life and their personal life. For some other people, financial freedom means being able to have money and leave money to their kids. They desire that their children don't have student loans. Their children, have the freedom to make whatever career choices that they have. Financial freedom for some other person, from someone else, could be a number. It could be, I want to be a billionaire. What financial freedom looks like to you is very personal, and it's going to depend on your relationship with money from when you were a child, your experiences, your exposures to wealth, to money, the kind of personal finance advice you received early on, and where you are currently right now. That's the very first step. You personally, who is trying to achieve financial freedom, what does financial freedom looks like to you? And it's very different. Step 1B is you need to determine what your financial freedom number looks like. The financial freedom number is the amount you need to have in invested assets, at which point you can begin to make life choices without thinking or worrying about money. That's the point in which you can decide to quit your job, change your job, do something else. Because financial freedom looks different for different people, this number will also vary for different people. There's a time component to determining this number. Let's assume that we have somebody whose name is John. Financial freedom to John means that he is work optional. He can decide to continue working at his current job, or you can decide to take another job or travel the world. That's what financial freedom looks like to him. Now, John is 35 years old, and John wants to achieve financial freedom at the age of 50. John does not really imagine himself working a 9 to 5 when he's 60 or when he's 70. John wants that by the time he's 50, he can make the choice to stop working and do whatever he likes. So John has 15 years essentially to financial freedom. Now, for John to determine his financial freedom number, what John needs to do is John needs to think and say, when I'm 50 years old, what would my life look like? Or what do I want my life to look like? That's the value of setting a goal. It gives you 2020 vision. It gives you the ability to create the future instead of react to the future when you get there. So John can be like, when I achieve financial freedom, I want to be living in my own house. I want to be able to play golf every weekend. I want to be able to go on dates with my wife every week. I want to be able to fund my children's education. I want to have a BMW, a Mercedes-Benz. I want to have 2 houses, one in the city, one in the country. Like, John can sit down and dream about what that life looks like. When you have a vision of what that life looks like, you then need to determine how much money do you need to have every year to be able to sustain or build that life. And that number will be different John could be like, I need 80K. Like, so imagine you already have the house, you already have the car. $80,000 every year to be able to maintain that quality of life. When you have that figure that you need to maintain the quality of life in the future, the next step is to multiply that figure by 25. 25 is just a heuristic. It's a roundabout figure. $80,000 times 25. That number is John's financial freedom number. That's the amount that John needs to have invested for him to be able to maintain that lifestyle that he has envisioned. Now, that number is different for everybody. If financial freedom for you means being a billionaire, then your number will be 1 billion to calculate this number. But not going into much detail, you need a financial freedom number, and that number becomes your North Star. That number becomes the goal. That's what you are working towards. And it's so important to have this, and that's why it's the first step. Because the days where you need to cut back on things, the days where you need to delay gratification, what's going to keep you going is this vision, is this goal, is this number that you have set for yourself. So that's the very, very first step. And it's a step that many people fail to do. Many people just start their personal finance journey by saving, by investing, by cutting their costs. These are all good habits, and we're going to get there. Downside of that is whenever you hit a bump, you hit a difficult time, you may lack the motivation to keep going because you've not set a destination. It just seems like, am I going to keep doing this all my life? Good to have that goal. It's good to have that number because it gives you direction, it gives you vision, and it helps you to work towards it. Now, once you have this, second step is you need to identify your first cash cow. Your first source of cash for most people is their jobs, right? It's your job. It could be a business, it could be side hustles, whatever it is. You need to identify and get your first cash cow. So I said get in case you are a student, you don't have any sort of income. After you determine your wealth number and you determine what financial freedom looks like to you, you need to work on getting your first cash cow. Now, if you've not gotten your first cash cow, my advice is get the biggest cash cow you can get. The bigger the cash cow, the more milk you can milk from your cow. Simple analogy. If you already have a cash cow right now, can you increase your cash cow? The more the cash cows you have, the better. But the first step is to get at least one. Get your first cash cow and make it as big as possible. When you get your first cash cow, the next thing to be is save up 1 month of expenses in an emergency fund. Emergency fund should just be your core expenses. So these are the big three: food, transport, and living. Living includes rent, utilities, power, heat. These are your three main expenses. These are the things you need to exist well. I like to expand it and say have 1 month of expenses that you need to generate your cash cow. If you're a business owner, that becomes important because your emergency fund needs to include personal expenses as well as expenses to run your business for another month. When you have that, it's time to move on to step 3. Step 3 is to determine a good enough standard of living for yourself. Again, this would differ from person to person, depending on where you live. Someone who lives in New York would have a higher cost of living, standard of living, than someone who lives in Wyoming or somewhere else that is not New York, right? And standard of living looks like, how big is my house? How big is my apartment? What level of furnishing do I want to get? Do I need a car or do I not need a car? Once you have that, you want to master budgeting. You want to set a budget, transport, food, living expenses, as well as other things. So subscriptions, health payments if you have that, shopping if you have that, other expenses that may be necessary for you to maintain your life. You also want to track your expenses at this stage. This stage in the ladder to financial freedom is a learning phase, is a place where you develop financial awareness. So you want to master budgeting, you want to know where your core expenses are, where your variable expenses are, what your margin is. And I talk about all this in my video about building a financial plan. I'll link that up here for you to go and watch. This step is a step in the ladder, but it's a continuous step. At every step in the ladder, you will come back here, right? You may need to update your standard of living. You may need to update what your budget looks like. But this is the step where you build the habits. The step here is a habit step. You build the habit of tracking your expenses, of having a budget, of living below your means. This is where you build it. And the output of this step is your margin. Your margin is the difference between your income, your cash cow, and your expenses. And this margin is key. Without this margin, you cannot continue on the step of financial freedom. Your savings margin, the margin between your income and your expenses, is very, very important to every other step. If you don't have a margin, you cannot be financially free. If you don't have a margin, you cannot build wealth. So step 3, take as much time as you need, figure it out. While you are doing that, that's a step. You never graduate from this step, as I said. You move on to step 4. Step 4 is where you build 3 months expenses in your emergency fund. After you have 1 month of savings in your emergency fund, next step is to build 3 months. So take the same formula, and I have a video about building an emergency fund. If you want to dig deep into this emergency fund business, I'll link that up here. Take your 3 month emergency fund and put it in a high yield savings account. I have more details in my emergency fund video. When you are done with step 4, you move on to step 5. In step 5, I want you to identify your high interest debt. High interest debt is debt that is above 6%. Whatever it is, most times it's usually credit card debt, sometimes car payment. Whatever it is, I want you to categorize your debt, range them from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, and in step 5 you want to begin to pay off high interest rate debt, except your mortgage. If your mortgage is above 6%, it doesn't count here. Most times this is just credit card debt and maybe an auto loan. You want to pay this down as aggressively as possible with the highest interest rate debt and move your way down lowest interest rate debt. At this stage as well, I will also say explore things like refinancing loans. My student loan was above 6% when I first got it, and now I've refinanced it. It's now a low interest rate debt, is lower than 6%. So do your best. If there are any loans that you can refinance here, refinance them. Your credit card, if you have a lot of credit card debt, you may be able to do a credit transfer and get a 0% APR. There are banks that do that. Look into that. But if you're not able to do that at this point, once you have 3 months emergency savings and you have a good enough cash cow, begin to pay off your high interest debt. I also want to say that step 2, which is get your first cash cow, is also a continuous step. I always say that building financial freedom depends on your margin, and your margin depends on 2 things: income and expenses. You can control your expenses, but you can also control your income. I feel like many people just focus on expenses without thinking about income. So if it is within your power and if you are serious about building financial freedom, you want to go back and forth between step 2 as often as possible, where you are getting as many cash cows as you can. If you can get 2 cash cows, get 2 cash cows. So have a side hustle, change your job, go for a promotion, change your industry, like whatever you can do to increase your cash cow, because your cash cow is so important. If your cash cow stops producing milk, your financial freedom journey can stop, at least to slow it down. Whereas imagine you have 10 cash cows all producing milk for you, you can get to financial freedom so much more quicker than someone who has 1 slim, lean cash cow. Jumping back to step 6, when you have a handle on your high interest debt, the next step is to build 6-month emergency saving fund. Yes, emergency saving funds are so important, and I talk about that in my emergency saving fund video, so I won't repeat that here. But they are very, very key. They give you flexibility, they give you peace of mind, they give you room to make decisions. Build up 6 months of your basic expenses in your emergency saving fund. Now, step 7. At this point, you have 6 months in your emergency saving fund. You are managing your standard of living, you are managing your margin, you're managing your cash cow well, you've managed your high interest debt. At this point, you want to begin to max out retirement fund. So if you have a corporate job, you may have a 401k, you may have opportunity to invest in a Roth IRA or an IRA, and your company may have things like company match. You want to begin to max them out, pay the highest amount possible every year. This is money that is just there. Starting as early as possible is so important. It is out of your reach, it's out of your control, and you get to enjoy the tax advantages of investing in this account. I have more videos about Roth IRAs and 401ks coming up very soon. If you want to learn more about that, definitely subscribe, like this video, and turn on your notifications. This is the point when you want to max them out as much as possible. Once you are funding your retirement goal, I also like to hit a savings goal. So this is a savings goal that is different from your emergency savings. This is very different. This is more like your investment fund. I like to have a target number of invested assets in savings and investment. 1 year of your future living expense. That's my recommendation. So if your future living expense is 80k a year, I like to have that amount of money together in savings and investment, including your emergency saving fund. What that means is, if I add up your emergency saving fund plus your regular savings plus your investment, you should have that number. So for John should have 80k cash and invested assets. I just like to have that buffer because it's important to start investing as early as possible, as early as you can. So let's say of the 80k, maybe 20k is your emergency fund. The remaining 60k, you should begin to invest that. And you can also pick a number, right? You could say 100k, 150k, whatever number that you feel comfortable with, just having that there, liquid invested down. Once you have that in step 7, you move on to step 8. Step 8 is where you focus on being debt free. Pay off all your debt, including your low interest rate debt, minus a mortgage. A mortgage ideally supposed to be low interest rate. Is a house that you live in, are supposed to hold on for a longer period of time. I always recommend continue to invest while you pay off your mortgage, but you may have other debt like student loans. This is a good time to pay off your student loans. Of course, as you are paying off the debt, you are also investing, you are also maxing out your 401k, you are also maxing out your Roth IRA, You are also managing your standard of living. You are increasing your cash cow. You can see that as you go up the ladder of financial freedom, you will be doing something simultaneously. So don't just like stop investing, stop maxing out your Roth IRA, your 401k to pay off your debt. No, you want to do them simultaneously, but at this time you are focusing on that. So a good example could be at level 8, you increase your student loan payment. So let's say before you are paying the minimum student loan, maybe you are paying like 1.5. At this point, you may increase it to $5,000. You may increase it to $10K a month, right? Depending on what your income is. So level 8 is where you are aggressively paying off any other debts that you have and working towards the journey of being debt-free. Step 9 is where you are debt-free and you begin to accelerate investing. Your entire margin is going into investment. Everything. You are maxing out all, retirement savings accounts, and you are investing in opportunities that come your way. At this point, you probably have a bigger bucket. So maybe you are now investing in businesses, you have venture capital investment, you have gold investment, maybe crypto, different buckets of assets at this point. And you just continue doing this until you get to your financial freedom number. Each of the steps that I mentioned in this video to financial freedom, they can all be separate videos where we go into detail about actual strategies to make them happen. And that's the plan over the course of this year. I'll talk about each of these steps in detail. If there's any one of these steps that you want me to explain more, or you are confused about something that I said, leave a comment in the comment section below and I will prioritize making those videos first. The steps in the financial freedom, they are not linear. Many of these steps are concurrent. For example, when you get to step 9 and you're accelerating your investment, you may need to get a car loan at that point. And then when you get a car loan, you will need to begin to pay that off. But the key is, at any point in time, you should know roundabout where am I? Am I on step 7? Am I on step 8? Keeping your financial freedom number in front of you, keeping your financial freedom vision in front of you will be helpful to guide you as you change strategies, as you go back and forth between steps. On this journey of financial freedom, you are also living, so things may change in your life. For example, you may get married, you may begin to have kids, you may have a bigger house. At that point, your 6-month emergency fund that you saved back in step 6 may not be enough. You may need to go back and increase your emergency fund. Again, as you continue living, you may have bigger and bigger cash cows. If you stay in one job, you're getting promoted, you're getting higher level of responsibility. Your cash cow will get bigger and bigger and it will accelerate your journey to financial freedom. Financial freedom is so worth it. Whatever step you are on the journey to financial freedom, building a financial plan is very, very important. Every year, it's important for you to sit down and determine what your financial goals are and how you're going to get there. And that's why I made a video about how to build a financial plan for 2025. If you've not seen that video, I encourage you to watch that video and set up a financial plan for yourself that will put you in the right place on your journey to financial freedom. Thank you for watching this video. Until the next video, stay rich and build wealth. Bye.